Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Candace Dixon, and I'm NPower's Coalition Development Director. It's an immense honor to be involved with such a mission-driven organization that focuses on advancing equity in the tech workforce and transforming lives through skills training. In my role at NPower, I'm charged with building and supporting the Command Shift Coalition. Command Shift, which launched in May of 2021, is a glass ceiling breaking national consortium of women and allies that advocate for strategies that invest in the advancement of young women of color in tech careers, with a specific focus on women from underrepresented communities and non-traditional pathways. The coalition is composed of business leaders, corporations, nonprofits, and community organizations who, together, will address the glaring inequalities of women of color in technology. I'd like to welcome 3 new member companies, Accenture, Broadridge, Workday, and new nonprofit partners, Girl Scouts of the USA and Girls Who Code. These new partners bring aligned passion and vision for the future of work and insight and experience in skills development that is critical to our success. Command Shift was developed in response to the systemic underrepresentation of women of color in the tech sector. We believe that with focused intentions and actions, we can make and inspire the necessary shifts to motivate and educate young women about the pathways that exist to enter the tech industry, to open doors and make space at the table for diverse perspectives, and to create a more inclusive workplace for all people, regardless of race, gender, economic background, or sexual orientation, to thrive in tech careers. Today, 1 in 5 Americans is a woman of color. Women of color experience lower wage earnings, higher rates of poverty, and greater unemployment than all other Americans. Yet, if you look throughout the vast tech industry, Black and Latinx women make up only 5% of this workforce. This reality left us with burning questions. Where are women of color working? And why aren't they gravitating to or being sought after by tech? How many of them are out there? And what skills do they need to gain access to the tech sector? Well, I'm excited to share that today we have new data that helps us answer these questions. Thanks to our partnership with labor market analytics firm, Emsi Burning Glass, the support and input from the Command Shift Coalition members, and the real-life experiences shared by women of color graduates of the NPower program, we have discovered a viable, diverse pipeline ready in plain sight. This data allows us to not only set the North Star goal for the coalition, but to regularly track and measure our progress of advancing diversity at the city and sector level over time. And while women of color today make up only 5% of the tech workforce, Command Shift seeks to double the representation of women of color to 10% over the next 10 years. We believe this goal is ambitious yet achievable because our research found that there are more than 250,000 women of color with foundational skills and work experience who, in a matter of months, could launch tech careers and contribute to a booming economy. This groundbreaking discovery challenges the long-held notion that there is a lack of skilled women of color ready for tech. So let's break down the details so everyone joining us today can get as excited as I am. This afternoon, we are having 2 important conversations about this discovery. For our first panel, we are going to touch on some of the research and what we think it means for the future of work for women of color in tech. After that, we'll have another conversation between Coalition Steering Committee members, moderated by a young woman of color who has recently launched her own career in tech, NPower alumnus and IT specialist, Sierra Bentley. These dynamic panelists will share how this game-changing data could change how we source and support diverse talent moving forward. But first, I'd like to welcome Joel Simon, Vice President of Workforce Strategies at Emsi Burning Glass, Bertina Ceccarelli, CEO of NPower, and Coriel Taylor, Managing Director at Accenture, to the conversation. So let's talk about data. Joel, I want to start with you. Many of the people joining us today want to understand what I'm talking about. So where are these 250,000 women of color that could enter the tech workforce? And can you break down what this research entails and how we know these women are out there and ready for tech?
Sure. Thanks, Candace. Great to be here. So where are those women? They are in other jobs. They are in what we would call tech adjacent jobs or part of the tech eligible workforce. What we mean by that is they bring skills that are important to those tech roles, but they're not working in technology proper just yet. They are working with technology. They're using sophisticated interfaces. They're dealing with data. They're dealing with technology tools, and they're also bringing management skills. They're bringing interpersonal skills. They're bringing organizational skills. They're bringing all of those other skills that are also required in those tech jobs. Every job has its own unique combination of skills, but very few jobs confine those skills just to those jobs. So by reaching outside of the tech workforce proper into other areas where tech skills and other skills are present, that's what surfaces these women who are ready, who may need some upskilling, but certainly can get there much more quickly than if they started from square one.
Right. And, Joel, I'm so glad that you mentioned upskilling. It perfectly segues into my next question, which is for Bertina. As a leading tech skills training provider, does the skill similar workforce sound like a new discovery? I'm curious about your perspective on this research.
Yeah, Candace, thanks so much. And I'm so thrilled that we're all here together. I would say that this research makes a very important case that there is a large, 250,000 is a big number, a large and viable but untapped talent pool that can not only help companies reach their diversity goals, but more importantly, I think satisfy a very urgent business imperative to identify talent who could take on this increasingly large number of open tech roles. I also think that for an organization like NPower, it really reaffirms our role as that bridge. We talk about upskilling, that bridge that's a short distance between these skill similar roles that Joel described and thriving tech careers. And I think finally, as we probe this conversation, as we look deeper into the research, we'll find that there are so many avenues for people on this panel, the next panel, and everybody tuned in today to become action-oriented allies to really help support. Candace, I think how you mentioned it is best. Supporting women who are ready and in plain sight to be able to take on these technology careers.
Great. Thank you so much, Bertina. And, I think it's so important that we talk about a bridge to build this talent pipeline. And so I want to go back to Joel. Can you help me explain how this new talent ecosystem and pipeline supports the Command Shift Coalition goal of doubling the representation of women of color in tech? What do these job transitions look like?
Well, they are the job transitions are from these tech adjacent roles into the tech proper roles. And as we've mentioned, there's a ton of folks out there, 250,000 folks out there who are already on the path, who are already fulfilling a large share of the requirements that these tech jobs require. What we need to do, number one, is to make the employers understand, hey, you've got folks that are really on the way. They're very close to being ready. And we also need to make those women understand, hey, you are closer than you think. With a relatively modest investment of time and effort, you too can be ticking off these other boxes that unlock these other opportunities. These kinds of transitions are feasible, right? They share some of the skills that the women already have, and they're beneficial. That results in a raise. The average wages of these tech jobs tend to be substantially higher than the average wages of the jobs that they have been in. So helping to demystify some of that, because tech roles can be kind of foreboding and intimidating and mysterious. But if you really sort of build on the strengths and make strategic investments in that skill development, you can bridge the gap. I would suggest that very, very few of us are 100% ready to do the jobs that we're in on the first day or the day before we get hired. It always requires some learning. It always requires some development and some growth. And so if we have that growth mindset, and if we can be specific about what those particular skills are that currently separate them from those better, more lucrative and more promising jobs, we can really grease that pathway so more of those large number of folks in tech adjacent roles can apply their current skills, build on them, and start adding additional value to companies who have been crying for more people, who have been saying, hey, where are these folks? Well, we're suggesting that they are out there. And if we keep doing what we've been doing, we're going to continue to be disappointed. But if we look to a very rich talent pool and make strategic investments in them, we're going to be solving problems, not just for the women who could be earning more, but also for the companies who could be doing more, but for the lack of talent.
Yeah. I love this, Joel and Candace and everyone. So for me, as both a data geek and an extreme expressive, I love it when the data complements what we experience, and you're spot on, right? It's been consistent with my experience at Accenture, and these people are coming in with relevant skills, and so especially a lot of our apprentices have joined, and they're bringing their skills to bear that they've had from other industries and other places. And just because these jobs don't read tech on paper does not mean that they don't have skills that translate well. And so I'm very excited. I'm very happy that the data and the insights that we're gaining are going to really help us drive some change. So I'm excited.
And Coriel, when we talk about these jobs where some of those skills are similar and translatable, the fact that Emsi Burning Glass identified over 500 occupational categories, to me, is astounding.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Right. Well, Coriel, since you're sharing your insight and your experience, I'm curious, with you as a coalition member, how does the command shift goal of 10% over 10 years land with you?
Yeah. So Candace, I don't know if you remember like one of our first conversations when we talked about this goal, right? My face lit up because it tends to do that a lot. And also my mind started churning. It's a big goal. It's a bold goal. And I love it. And bold goals require bold efforts. And so I really like it and I love it. I love the point behind the coalition. That's the point, right? No one can do it on their own. But as we partner together in this coalition and help really drive change, it's going to be amazing. And it also helps me think about at Accenture, our apprenticeship network, and our program that we started back in 2016. It started with, I think, 5 apprentices, and since then it's grown to over 1,200. And our North America CEO, Jimmy Etheridge, just announced that we will have 20% of our entry-level positions will be filled with apprentices, many of whom meet this demographic that we're talking about of women of color. And so I'm excited. And I think that again, being a part of the coalition is saying we can't do this on our own. And it's not any one person or one employer's problem to solve, but we can do this together and let's go and shatter it. Let's shatter that goal. Let's work closely to get it done.
Coriel, I would add bold goals, yes, require bold action, but it also stands to result in big payoff. Big payoff for the workers, big payoff for the companies, big payoff for the communities where they are. It's worth doing.
That's right. We won't lose. We won't lose.
Yeah. So as we're talking about big payoffs, what we know is that this research changes the hiring game for any tech recruiter, executive, and company, as well as prospective women of color who might not believe they're in a tech-enabled position. So what does this research reveal to you as an executive in the tech industry, Coriel?
Yeah, again, to me, it just makes clear something that I've known and felt and feel proud to have known and even within Accenture is that we need to, and we have a huge opportunity to expand our talent pool, right? And rethink how we're approaching recruiting and retaining diverse talent, especially women in tech careers, right? So, it says that, education, as we've looked at it traditionally, right, in terms of 4-year degrees versus upskilling, right? It doesn't hold this, it's not the same, right? That these careers will translate very well. And so to me, again, it gives me opportunity, it gives me hope that we can go and make change and actually expand this talent pool. And I'm excited about it.
No, I mean, that's what we want to do. We want to expand the talent pool. We want to provide more opportunity to women who really just want an opportunity to break into tech. And so that's what makes me most excited about this research.
As the tech sector has matured, I think a lot of us have forgotten. Back in the day, it was all non-traditional applicants. There wasn't a clear pathway, right? And that wasn't so long ago. So if we can sort of recapture that spirit and recognize that that really got the tech industry sort of pretty far ahead, can we reignite that impetus to be able to say, hey, we want to focus on skills and what people can do, not what they look like, not where they come from, not what kind of school they went to. But can they actually do the job, and do they have the goods sort of coming in? The tech sector's done it before; they can do it again.
Absolutely. To that point, Joe. I mean, when I first started, my first project ever, one of my team leads asked me if I knew SQL, and my response was, "I don't know who that is." And those of you who know SQL, you know that that's quite a joke there. But the point is, there's training, there's opportunity to reskill and learn, and we'll get there.
And look, I meet with CIOs and CTOs all day long, and I'm always struck by how many share with me their own career trajectory. Many of them started as help desk technicians, help desk support. They had to start someplace. And yet there was a career path over time and with experience that landed them very senior level jobs. We need to rewrite that career pathing for women of color.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, there's so much opportunity with this new data and this new research. And I know we're going to get to this in our next conversation, but I'd love to hear each of your perspectives on how this discovery of potential can be used. I believe that finally having some data shatters the excuse or the myth that a diverse tech pipeline is hard to find. Is this about training, hiring, or all of the above? What do you all think?
I'll jump in, Candace. I do think it's all of the above. And I think for us at NPower, a couple of things. First, it will help us laser focus on recruiting women of color from some of these job categories where, again, the skills lift is less than those who may not have some of this work experience. And I think part of that effort is also an educational effort to, Joel, you pointed out there's some mystery for what tech jobs really are all about. We can help with some of that effort so that we can remove that mystery and make those jobs exciting and accessible. But the second thing, and I want to come back to Coriel's statement around the incredible work that Accenture is doing around apprenticeships. A lot of times the barrier for women in these jobs is, you don't have exactly the precise experience that we need for this job. You haven't done this job before. And when companies implement a really robust apprenticeship program, they take that off the table, right? Because they're allowing opportunities for women to have these experiences, to learn on the job, and become really strong candidates for upward mobility within that company over a short period of time.
Absolutely. And to piggyback off of that, Bettina, it's learning those skills for tech. And again, I can't emphasize it enough. It's bringing your own experiences and those other skills that are not tech specific to bear, right? The ability to work in teams, the ability to present in front of clients, the ability to deal with customers, all of those things are also just add-on. Those are bonuses to the equation. So absolutely.
We're certainly lucky to have Coriel and Accenture really leading the sort of the charge on this, but we also recognize there's a lot of small companies out there who don't necessarily have the infrastructure to do it. So we can take the lessons from the research, we can look at the skills overlap, we can pinpoint with really good accuracy the skills gap and the approaches that Coriel and folks like her are taking, and then spread that out, right? So recognize that a community-based organization or a community college or a commercial training provider can say, aha, I don't need to send somebody through this 2-year program, but I can just focus in on that skills gap and I can recruit right out of that tech adjacent workforce. We know who they are, we know what they need, and we can ride that wave.
Yeah. And then I like the word that you use, Candace, is shatter, right? So we're gonna shatter quite a few things, and I think especially for women of color who are listening to this and who are going to hear about and work with empowering others is I want you all to shatter that too. Shatter any notion that you can't have a job in tech, or shatter any notion that tells you that it's not going to work, it's not going to translate, because that's just, we're seeing the data's telling us, and I can tell you from my own experience, that's not true. There is a place for you here, and I'm excited. I'm so pumped.
No, and I think that that's the resounding message that we want to send. There is a place for women of color in tech. We just need to make sure that we're looking in plain sight. So what I want to do is thank each of you for helping break down this data in a way that we can all begin to understand. I don't know about you, but I want more. The research report is being published in the spring. And in the meantime, here's what you can do. Open a new browser and head to npower.org/command shift to reserve your advanced copy so that you can be among the first to review and prepare to make some shifts in your business. Now, one of the things that makes this coalition different and special is that we aren't trying to change the tech industry for women of color. We're trying to advance equity in the industry with women of color. The women we seek to support are at the table with us. Their perspectives are critical to our work. So I'd like to introduce you to Sierra Bentley. She is an NPower alumnus hailing from Detroit, Michigan, who is navigating her early career in tech.
I first got started having an interest in technology when I was a little kid. So I am the only child, and I stayed with my grandparents most of the time when my mom worked. So I would just go downstairs. I said, okay, I want to have something to do. My grandfather has like a big stereo table, and it has like all these cords and buttons and stuff. So I would go behind there, act like I was fixing stuff. I had a keyboard that I put on top of it, and I would just like type random things as if I was typing like a ticket. It's like a help desk machine. When imaginary people would come to my help desk, I just thought, okay, maybe I can fix this for them, or maybe I can give them this cord and be like, okay, I'll check it and see what's wrong with it, and then just type in the computer. So it really started from there. So when it came to technology, I put it in the back of my mind for a little bit. When I was going to school, we didn't have the best technology. We only had one computer lab out of 500 students. And it was around my junior year that I had a meeting with my counselor and told her that I wanted to do astronomy. She said that's not something people usually major in. There's no jobs in that field. What else did I have for her? And then I said, okay, well, I'm also interested in IT. The IT guy was walking past her office, and she just pointed and discussed at him and was like, so you want to be like him? And I'm like, well, I don't think it's such a bad thing to be like him. And she just kind of looked at me and was like, you don't want to be like him. And she just gave me a generic like pamphlet on engineering, and I was basically dismissed from her office. So the conversation with my counselor impacted me. It made me really confused when I graduated. Every time I thought I knew what I was supposed to be doing, where I was supposed to be going, and what I was supposed to be studying just never really aligned at the end of the day. Like I always had questions like, am I majored because this is what people have continuously told me to do, or is it something that I truly want to do and can succeed in for a good portion of my life? So I knew I had to get some type of degree to show for as far as an educational standpoint, but I also wanted more hands-on interactive community of people, a group of people of like-minded students who are also like myself. So that's where I feel like NPower really came in. So NPower is definitely faster. It's a 23-week intensive training program, so I really enjoyed that. Also, they gave vouchers to pay for major certifications as well, and now I have something that can speak to my ability, not only completing their technical training program, but also getting to go from an imaginary help desk to a real help desk is just like out of this world, because I feel like just sometimes I'm living in a dream. My imagination from when I was little and like to now is my wildest imagination and dream that came true.
Good afternoon. I am honored to be a part of this event and to get to talk with three, dare I say, badass professional women who are true advocates for women like myself. I'd like to introduce you to Pashan Mann, Vice President of Talent Acquisition, Comcast NBC Universal, Wendy Dowd, Chief Talent and Experience Officer with Guardian Life Insurance, and Lisa Asari, Senior Product Manager with Amazon. It is clear to me that this new research could inspire young women to pursue careers in tech, but I'm curious. As executives in the tech industry, is this research surprising at all? Especially this skill-similar concept? Why haven't efforts to increase diversity in tech worked in the past? Lisa?
This is such an important thing where we think about this is really a different way to think about talent. Or even to the last conversation, it's actually going back to our roots. Companies, like people, they really operate on an implicit bias, not out of bad intention necessarily, but because this is how we've sort of instrumented and structured our activities like recruiting and retention. And we lean into what we know. And we believe that that is more of a template of success, but really it's closer to a barometer of sameness or likeness than anything else. And we know now that there's really a tangible impact with diversity. So we need to take a longer term view. We're still relying on these traditional pipelines of talent connected to university programs for early career talent. And we keep looking at places where we've been before, kind of expecting them to improve diversity, but we really need to go where diversity lives. And I think that's what's so exciting about this research, hiding in plain sight. It's that they're there, and is a yes, and we need to expand our view of where we go to find the talent that's almost that's ready to move into the tech industry, knowing that we're going to expand careers, see talent grow at a faster clip because technology has been evolving and changing at a faster pace. We don't even know what the skills are that are necessary for jobs in 5 to 10 years. So very exciting to see this.
Thank you. And Wendy, did you want to add to it?
Yeah, you know, I was going to say too, I guess I'm not surprised, but I'm super excited about the data and the research. And it's when you all go in and start digging in, you're going to be excited, and you'll really feel why we're like really happy about this work being done with Emsi Burning Glass. When I think about why I'm excited is I love when you can use data not to predict the future, but use data to shape the future. And this is exactly what this research will allow all of us to do. And it really, when you think about all of our companies, are really the change that is needed and the mindset change, and also tapping into this talent pool that is sitting there ready to be leveraged. Part of it is being able to have the data and the insights to put together the business case. In which this does. It really starts to show where the talent is, where specifically to look for them, whether we're recruiting them and attracting them to Guardian, or also people that are already working and they are Guardians and they are ready for these tech positions. So we're really excited. You can think about how this will impact not only our hiring processes at all of our companies, but also how we develop and promote and grow this really important talent to be able to have more women of color in tech and to build these really strong, diverse teams.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then Pashan?
This is a game changer. It's so exciting to see the data, and it's going to really help our hiring leaders, our talent acquisition teams know where to go. You asked in the beginning, Sierra, about why, how is this really going to move the needle, and how do we do that? And it's really about our approach. Our approach needs to change. Where we go to find talent. And I don't believe, it's interesting, Sierra, when we listen to your story, you talk about as a high schooler, what was it that made you didn't even think about potentially going into tech? And it really comes back to digital equity. And we need to keep that top of mind. At Comcast, we have a program called Internet Essentials, where we provide low-cost Wi-Fi access and free laptops to homes that qualify. And they tell the story of a high school student who was in AP English and was having to do her entire English homework on a smartphone. Imagine, we're all sitting very nicely with our wonderful Wi-Fi connections, and we're doing our jobs. Imagine if you didn't have any Wi-Fi, if you didn't have a laptop. And then I had another conversation with a university, and it was an HBCU, and this is the same for HSI. It's historically Black college, university, or Hispanic serving institution. And 85% of their students are on financial aid. And then the pandemic happens, and they actually don't have a laptop. They can't go on campus to have access for those laptops. And they are now doing college level work on a smartphone. To take that in. Imagine that your first generation, you finally get to college if you get that opportunity. Some don't, which is also another part of this, is considering individuals that don't have a degree. But even for those folks, this is a challenge. And so when we are having our approach, we need to be thoughtful. We need to be flexible in our processes. We need to have a DE&I lens in everything we do. Think about the campus recruitment process. We come in September, we offer virtual pizza in the evenings, and then we offer this wonderful opportunity that's only during the summer. Okay, imagine if you are literally having to have a part-time job while you're in school to feed your family. Guess what? You're not going to engage in that process. So what this data tells you is that there's people that have come through that process, might, because they didn't engage, went to a position, right? So they might even have a degree and went to a position because they didn't get access and exposure. And then we look at a resume and we say, well, because this person doesn't have 5 internships, this person doesn't have a degree. Well, this whole system is set up for certain individuals with certain backgrounds, and it's not diverse. And so we really need to shift the way that we're looking. And what's amazing about this data, it is actually going to tell you where you can go and find these folks. And so it's just amazing, and it's great research.
Thank you so much, Pashan. The data definitely speaks volumes. So now moving on, I know that there was a lot in the news, especially last year and this year, about the Great Resignation and the fact that companies are struggling to attract and retain talent. In my experience, after graduating from NPower, I did take a tech job, and I felt like it was not a very supportive environment, from the hiring process of how they found me, and then the training process, and then many other facets that came with the job itself. I did resign that position, and I do now work at a software training and development company as a certified IT specialist, where I do feel valued and supported. But how does this research connect to the new workforce realities? And if we wanted to do Pashan?
Sure. So the Great Resignation is actually a great reset. It gives employees the power to choose to belong to a company, and employers to constantly work on their recruitment and retention techniques. Change your life, change your career. I mean, now that's what people are saying right now. How do I live my life every day, and how does my job impact that? I often talk about the DE&I journey, a diversity, equity, and inclusion journey, as a very personal journey. And we often have to, being in HR as a talent acquisition person, we have to meet people where they are in the organization. And it's really an exercise in change management. And there's a change management tool that talks about the different steps that a person goes through to drive change. And it starts with awareness, and then you go to desire. So we bring awareness. This is important. This data is important. This is what, this is something you should do. And then desire, and then knowledge. So what do? We say that, then we go straight to training. We go straight to training folks. And then we go and say, what are the metrics, right? How do we reinforce this? Well, in reality, we've skipped over a very critical component of this, desire. Doesn't matter how often we talk about this, doesn't matter how many metrics. If people really fundamentally don't desire this change, then people like Sierra are going to come into an organization and not feel included because they may be the only. And oh, by the way, the story I shared earlier, she's had a different experience than other folks in order to get there. So she needs a different experience when she gets into the workplace. And so we really need to hone in on our DE&I strategies as we approach this. And we need to look at it as each individual. You need to train everyone in the organization, no matter where they are. You know, they could even be in HR and be at a part where they may need some training. And at the end of the day, this is the right thing to do. And guess the amazing products and services that we can provide with people that have come from a different background. It's really going to make our organizations much more inclusive and much better.
Yeah, and there's a huge argument for positive impact when it comes to the diversity of a team in thinking, in the skill sets they bring. In addition, I think, Prashant, you were talking about kind of the recruiting activities, but there's also the importance of the retention, which, Sierra, your story absolutely speaks to when it comes to feeling welcome and at the table when you're there. And I think the shift also, Prashant, that you were talking about the DEI efforts, is that it isn't up to the folks who are in the underrepresented minority to represent the entire set of diverse perspectives. So the work isn't done once you get someone in. It's really about creating that community and the place of belonging, and that it isn't just on them. The burden isn't on them to really have and invite a seat at the table. This is work that we all share, and in part why I think it's so important to have these kinds of conversations and to have the data to support that this is not effort that just takes, you know, a person joining a team. This is the entire company as a whole.
You know what? I love that too, Lisa. And Sierra, when you were sharing your story, one of the things that, you know, we're consistently thinking about when we have, like at Guardian, we have what's called our JEDI program, which is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, to be able to attract talent like you. But then also, how are we really setting you up for a long, successful, we would hope like you'd stay with Guardian for a very, very long time and be developed and be able to find new exciting things to do. So one of the things too I was thinking of as we were talking is the importance of sponsorship. We started and we kicked off 2 years ago a formal sponsorship program to be able to be in the room, give people those type of opportunities. And when I think about the research, it also helps all of us who are sponsoring this wonderful talent for that next role to be able to see people that are close in those tech roles, so we can even expand our sponsorship and be advocating for that diverse talent in these new roles. When I think about, I love your story too, because you're like sitting at, you know, in your home, imagining yourself, and then also being able to have people in your life that are saying, you know what, you can do it. And that's a lot of times too, we find that, you know, maybe because we don't have all the skills that are needed, we need support from each other to say, you have a lot of the skills and you can learn the other ones. And we're going to be, you know, we'll be there with you to ensure success and have somebody there, and all of us as a community being able to sponsor and advocate for each other and be able to really advance people like yourself in tech and make it a reality. And then more and more of you're telling your story, it becomes a reality. Other people, other girls are seeing those stories, and they're, you know, jumping in to these roles that we're desperately needing this talent. The demand is definitely there, and now we found, you know, we're finding more and more of the supply, and now it's about bridging both of the supply and demand.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. I usually tell people it was a journey to get to this point. And kind of like how I said in my video, My counselor discouraged me from getting into tech for whatever bias that she already had in her mind. And I wish through my journey, I saw a lot more women of color so that I know I could do the same thing. And just the data from not only this panel, but all the research that's being done by Emsi Burning Glass is definitely going to help a lot more women of color just understand what jobs they have now, how can they upskill, and then how can they get into those positions that will pay them what they're worth and that they ultimately do know what they're worth. So thank you all for that. So now let's talk about actions. How could this new approach inform the big shifts that need to be made? How can we make the coalition goal of 10% of women of color in tech a reality?
Well, when I think of it, some of it, this research will really help shift the mindset. And so I think about your story and your counselor. You're right. It was some of those just unconscious biases that she had. If she, and how do you shift that mindset? You shift it by stories like yours. You shift it by leveraging the data and the insights. Now we know we have, more and more. We tell the story, 250,000. Women of color that are ready and skilled for these roles. So it's around shifting the mindset, and you do that by leveraging data, by leveraging research, and having kind of this. I also think of it now. We have this precision in where this talent is and how to go and attract and continue to develop and bring them into these very much needed tech roles.
And I think the thing that we talk a lot about is the impact of stories. And I think we connect on a human level about sort of how an individual got there. But I think what's really exciting in that data is that we know there are a lot of folks that have those stories that we can translate into positions that look like ours within the companies that we work. And so it hopefully in that way, using data feels less daunting to essentially replicate or see more stories like Sierra's in a way that truly makes it possible for, I think, the folks who are looking for these positions named in a certain way on a job rec that says, I'm looking for this person with these kinds of skills. They can actually find over here in a job role that I didn't consider before. Like, this opens up huge possibilities because of that translation of from this role to this role. There are these sets of skills that this person has already experienced, that they can go and take into an interview and speak knowledgeably about how they, and at Amazon we talk a lot about leadership principles, how they really exemplified leadership principles in a different context, but it's still completely valid data to be able to use and talk about your leadership capacity.
From hiring and onboarding to retention, much of the shifts must take place inside of companies. A culture of belonging is just so critical to the success of our goals and ability to achieve equity, and that's what NPower is trying to do with this 10% goal. Language matters. When you have your position posted, there's platforms out there that will, there's some words from a gender perspective are more attractive, that you'll see that word and you'll say, oh, that's not a culture I want to be a part of. Different phrases, etc. So there's tools out there to help with that. Once an individual has joined the company, sponsorship, mentorship, having those opportunities within the company and tools to make sure that it happens. It's not, for someone who may have come from a background that this was not something that they were surrounded by other individuals that were in tech, other women in tech, they're not necessarily going to know once they get into the organization how to connect and build that community so they don't feel like they're just by themselves. So what tools do we have in place to ensure that happens if it does not happen organically? And so that's how we're going to get to the goal of 10%.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Pushan. So before we officially close, do any of the panelists have any final words or thoughts that the audience can leave with and take with them?
I would just leave with kind of where I started, and that is it's exciting to have data, not to predict the future, but data that all of us as leaders can help to shape the future. And we can really make a difference together. And so I'm really excited about the research and this really important work that we're all doing together.
Definitely want to underline the data. What we measure, we do. And I think this is what is most exciting, is that we can set really concrete goals against this and use that as our roadmap.
I'm excited about that we are in a position to have an impact and make a huge difference. This is actionable data. It's not just data for the sake of data. And that's what's most exciting. So sign up to get it so you can take it to action.
Great. Thank you so much. On behalf of all the women of color out there who, like me, want the opportunity to work in tech, I thank you. This event has been amazing. I want to thank NPower, Emsi Burning Glass, and the Command Shift Coalition for their laser focus on advancing women of color in tech. This research is proof. It points to talent is out there, and we need a bridge to connect us within the industry. My bridge was NPower. I earned multiple highly recognized industry standard tech certifications in a supportive environment with different people in the community, and they still mentor me to this day. For those of you joining this afternoon, please go to empower.org/command shift to request your copy of the research report coming out in March. And consider having your company join the Command Shift Coalition. We can achieve more by working together than we can working alone. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.